Hi. I also have to improvise a little because my invitation was actually through the Atelier Rijksbouwmeester. I'm I'm an art advisor for the Atelier Rijksbouwmeester, responsible for the percentage for art rule in the Netherlands. And so I prepared to say something from that side and not at all talk about my own work as a muralist. But then speaking to Uri and hearing your presentation, yeah, it's more actually better to say something about my own work in a way. And it's also very nice because this school is actually really something special, because my whole career as an artist developed towards making murals, and I also was thinking very quickly during your presentation, because I thought, when I would have been in that school instead of in the Rietveld Academy, would I also have developed what I did now? Because a lot of what I did was in a way, hoe zeg je dat? Je afzetten in contrast to all the things I learned at the Rietveld Academy. Because when I started there in '68, yeah, what you learned was that every artist is a conceptual artist. Every artist is always a conceptual artist, having ideas and then looking for the best medium or had to incorporate this idea in. And we were really drilled in that media where things a real artist could just use techniques or crafts, or these things were not things artists would deal with themselves. They would hire those people well, having been taught this for years and years and years, when I was in my final year, I in a way I really felt I thought in a way the opposite was true for me. So I thought ideas, the ideas float in the world. There's a lot of them. It's not so important that they are my own ideas, but I think crafts or painting is really an embodied personal thing to which you have a completely personal relation. And so I decided then that I could use all ideas, everybody else's ideas, but I would always paint them. And I also really would like, can I go on the internet here? Yeah, because, yeah, I'm sorry, it's really, when a cursor would work, yeah, okay. Sorry, but then you have some kind of idea. Maybe just one or two images as a kind of... Let's have this one. Oh, okay. Well, I already. Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. Yeah. And I also want to refer to this thing you mentioned, and which was earlier mentioned today, that every beginning always is also the end of something else. That was also something I experienced very strongly in the academy, because of course we had also art history, and the people who gave art history in the Rietveld at that time they really tended to start, for example, with Duchamp, to say Duchamp is the start of art. And then when people were really looking back much further, they would say, well, maybe the start would be Impressionism, for example. And I was always a bit annoyed with it because as a child I was really, I thought I was looking at books of the Egyptians, of the pyramids and the Egyptian paintings and all these kind of things, and I love those and still do. And yeah, and I always had the feeling that there were made points of start or yeah, much too late, and that the idea of something completely new, yeah, I was always a bit annoyed with it. Yeah. Yeah. So will just be a background. This is a painting I made. I will come back later to it, but I will not walk through to look up all kinds of images all the time, but just to have something in the background. Yeah. So I always had the feeling that there were things before that that would be at least as interesting as for example, Duchamp. And so I decided at the end I would be a painter. I would make paintings. So I rented the studio. I started painting, making paintings, exhibiting them, selling them, and I did it for quite some time, and went actually quite well. But more and more I got a bit. I also thought this whole setting of the artist in the studio, struggling with these works, and then putting them in a gallery, and then in the gallery they would be sold. Yeah, I felt not completely okay with it. It was a bit the whole idea that a painting could be something that could travel around the world would be something strange to me more and more. I thought. When a painting can be everywhere, it is actually not somewhere really. It could be everywhere, so it's probably nowhere. And I started to get more and more interested with the idea of wall paintings, to make wall paintings, make paintings connected to the wall, that they are only in one place. And when you're there, you see them, and there's no way to see them somewhere else. And when I started to make murals and wanting to make murals, I thought when I want to do it, I will probably not have commissions right away. So I need to start to do something in a way that they can be temporary. I can make them, and then they can be in art shows, but I can make them like in temporary works. And I also thought it would be nice when they are large, and when they're there for only a show, like a month or 3 months. I don't want to work for a month on a work which is also only a month on view. So I thought I want to work with other people to help me in painting, and to make work together. And and so this is a painting from 2008. It's in the Bonnefante Museum, and I show it because it was the first work which filled an entire room in one of the halls. And we worked with it like for 8 days with 10 people, and I give it this title, À mon seul désir, which is from the tapestry of the woman with the unicorn. I don't know if you all know this tapestry. Very beautiful tapestry. It's in Paris in the museum, and it's actually I think 7 tapestries. And it's about the mythological scenes, which now is thought are about the senses, the different senses. And the last one has a tent, a kind of tent, and on the tent is written À mon seul désir. I'm not so very fluent in French, so my understanding of it was I thought A means like dedicated. Mon seul désir, my only desire, dedicated to my only desire. And I really adopted this as a kind of mission as an artist to dedicate myself to my own desires. And as you can see, my desires are very decorative. And that was something which was, when I was in art school, was really not something that was promoted. But so this is probably was my first work where I thought, okay, this is what I really like, and this is also what I'm going to do. And yeah, so, and then what, for example, was very interesting for me is that you see here is the mural is all painted on the walls, but on it also are smaller works, this one and this one. Some of them were, for example, copies I made. This one is, for example, a copy of a work by René Daniels. This is an embroidery my mother made from a work I made. They're all copies and interpretations of other works. And one of the most interesting things was when the show was ready and the opening was there and the people were going in, that most of the people were so used to art shows as looking at different objects that they just walked from one work to the other, looking at the works. Where actually, of course, for me, the show was about the murals and I thought of them like a kind of Easter eggs hidden in the whole thing. But yeah, so this whole idea of empty, neutral rooms with things in it, I tried to do something about that, but a lot of behavior was still very about looking at small autonomous things. What I also did was make a vitrine with books, all books that inspired me about folk art and all kind of pre-Renaissance art. For me, I'm actually, I think the Renaissance was really probably the large mistake in art history. And before that, art was on walls, it was flat, all these kinds of good things, which we've abandoned since then. And so I had a lot of, it was a kind of open source work with all my inspirations in it. And then, of course, it's overpainted. So then it's temporary, it was there for 3 months, then it was overpainted. And maybe as a last thing I want to say is that this sentence, à mon seul désir, dedicated to my own desire, I more and more try to apply it as a guiding rule, and so I more and more so I started out with the temporary murals as a thing to be able to start without having commissions. But more and more, I really grown to the idea that it is very good to make things which are temporal, and because what I like to do most is to design and think about the works and to make them. And to make them is actually the best part. And of course, it's also nice to have an opening. After that, invite a lot of people, speak to them. They can all look at it. But then after that, yeah, you can make photographs and then it's fine. Then it can go, or yeah, for me it can go. So I made a kind of seizure that I thought once the work is in the world, in the museum or in the gallery or somewhere else, it's for other people to decide if they want to keep it or to destroy it. I don't interfere with that at all. And it gives a lot of freedom. So I have no storage. I don't have to install things. I don't have to transport things. I can make this kind of work with 2 large shopping bags in the train. And so my assistants also come with the train. And then we make a painting like this. And then afterwards lots of the material is finished. So the shopping bags are lighter when we go back. And so it's almost ideal, yeah. And of course, I also have made things which are still there, and I also make commissioned works which stay there. But actually, they're not different from these ones. They're really not different. So probably this is something a talk in favor of destroying and in favor of creating, and in the idea that destroying gives a lot of room for other things, and also gives room for a lot of freedom. Because maybe one last thing, I would never get a commission for this thing in a public space, or it is. People want something which is this term. I don't know what you what tijdloos. People always want, when they give commissions, they want something tijdloos, which is really the most stupid idea. And so I would never be able to get a commission for this, but I want to make it. So yeah, well, that's for now, probably enough. Huh?
Thank you, Alexander. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Gijs, for beautiful input. Very different from each other. But if I try to somehow look at it together, so the term site specificity came to mind. Specificity, site-specific installations, interventions was a very common token in the art discourse of the last decades, and I think was wrongly understood as somehow specially designed for a space, while I consider site-specific installations as interventions or arrangements in a given space that somehow reflect ephemerality, unfixity, things that are through when the grid of the space becomes a point of reference to which you also can resist, and therefore then a certain position is also placeless or ephemeral. And maybe the word ephemeral here is more accurate than the word destroy, the destruction. I would say of how you, Martin, is incorporating the different changes throughout time in your designs, and of course your thought about wall paintings as against maintenance, against permanence, as something that is ephemeral and is changeable and disappearing in time. Huh? So this idea of undermining permanence, which is somehow the basic condition of the object of art and the basic condition of the architectural outcome. Both of you somehow question it. Huh? So this is one thing that through which I can ask both of you the same question. And also one point that is more into my research, usually when there is this blur between art and architecture, art is always about blending in. So when art, in a way, the fact that they didn't even recognize the presence of the artwork is a simple proof of that. When artists use architecture, they try to make the art disappear. So they try to make something that is not art, or they try to show the thin line or the easily how art can easily disappear into non-art, and then therefore raise the question about the status of art and the autonomy of art and how art is distinguished from other disciplines and other fields of practice. So these are the two trajectories I would like to share with you.
A lot of things are said to say about that. I think one of the things which has also been very important for me is Joseph Beuys and the whole idea. he proposed that the difference between actually art and art objects and objects for use, the distinction between those is one of the cores of the problem of a lot of contemporary problems. And I feel very much related to that. That when you make a category that is only for perception, and which is perception, reflection, all these kinds of things, you do something stupid, I think. And so and then you of course said, Ästhetik ist eine Begleiterscheinung jeder menschlichen Tätigkeit. Beauty is a part of every human endeavor. I think that is a good thing. So to think about art, we should think about art. Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
No, you said that things that are only for aesthetic experience are stupid.
Yeah.
And then you spoke about beauty as essential. No.
No, I said, or Joost Beuys said, beauty is an aspect. He even says
like one aspect.
Begleiterscheinung.
Yes. One among
one
many.
aspect of every human thing.
Like one among many aspects.
One of many. One of many. One of many. Yeah, yeah. And he, for example, illustrates it with. There's a large interview where he illustrates it with the kind of where he starts talking about what is wrong with the floor, what is wrong with the walls. The walls are made of the wrong kind of bricks, which are baked too long, where it's only a one-story building, and the floor, which is made from a kind of fantasy marble or in a kind of fancy pattern, and everything is wrong. And then the interviewer asked, but do you also think something is right here in this room? And then there's a box, and he says, well, I think this box is quite good. And then the interviewer asked why. Well, he said, well, on one hand, you see this box is made by someone who needed the box. Two, the box is made with materials that were at hand. And then he has a very functional idea of the beauty. Yeah.
Should I press something? No. I think what I think for the architecture, what I think a problem is about the site specificity, and also for the students that are I think the biggest group here, is that there's a focus on preservation and working with the tangible things that are there in the place, rather than the more mental aspects of it. This means that often, for example, the intention of which something is built is seen as something that is, or seems to me, is seen as something of less importance than that what is actually built. So take, for example, the Canal District. They have made this into a museum. They've completely preserved it. And actually by doing so, they destroyed the whole intention. The intention was to create something that is continuously changing. So actually they destroyed the monument by preserving it. And I think this is a problem, and you see it
preserved by destroying somehow.
Yeah. So you cherish it. By cherishing it, you destroy it. And I think this is maybe also what you mean with it. Yep.
I remember when studying literature in university, they taught us that post-colonialism, it's also a very fashionable term today, reads like a post-colonialist reading of literature, of the literary works of the previous time, would always go against the original intention, and would find things that the author was not aware of, or the author was unconsciously planting in, and therefore exposing some kind of biased awareness, biased position. Yeah. So and somehow you represent this kind of approach or you try to restore the intention, or how would you position your? I tell you why I'm a little bit puzzled, because in a way your client, so to speak, and you did have a client, and it's still somehow the difference that makes the difference between art and architecture. But what was beautiful that your client was art or art education. In a way, you served, the bigger thing you served, other than yourself, was or your office or your firma was the idea of art or the idea of art education. No.
Yeah, craft education,
Yeah.
which is something very different, as you also mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
because the emphasis is really on making there, not so much on making art, and that's important difference. And about the intention, the first question, of course, it's impossible to know exactly the intention of the architect, but the point is that there's a sort of fluwele handschoen, like this soft glove approach towards heritage, which is sometimes super problematic. And I'm very much for a sensitive approach to dealing with existing architecture, but often it actually, by doing so, destroys what is.
From a restorative point of view, somehow.
Yeah. Also, yeah.
Okay. You want to
Yeah, I thought your remark was really interesting about the colonialist reading would always be a rereading. We were with the Atelier Rijksbouwmeester on an excursion in Oostende, and we were guided there by urban architect Elie de Vriend, and we were on the boulevard. And he explained to us this coast was in the 19th century were all villas. There were like 15 huge villas with the kind of private beaches.
You still see, huh? Somehow.
Well, but now
Here and
they're all gone, and now there are all these enormous apartment buildings, huge after
Still
each other.
Here and there you see, I think.
Yeah, some, but most of it.
Of course.
And then he said, this is, of course, democratic progress, because then it was 18 families who lived here. Yeah. And it's very good that now everybody can, or everybody, but a lot of people can be live on the beach. And I thought it was a very interesting idea and remark, because I thought, yeah, that's probably true. In a way, that's true. And then again, a lot of them were for sale or for hire, and the rest was empty because they're only there when the sun shines. So it was really a completely dead.
Yeah.
So I also, it's really complicated. It's complicated.
Yeah, something that's not totally related, but I'm interested in it. You mentioned that you started by going against the stream, and you were wondering if you were in school, if you would maybe have done something different. But now you're an advisor for the government.
Yeah.
So in a way, you've artistry, or at
Very
least
good
not
question.
going against the stream anymore, I guess,
Yeah.
right? That you're kind of accepted by the.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Does that change your work? Do you now want to somehow go in the other direction, or does it somehow change something?
It's well, for example, architecture is always adapted, but this government rule, percentage for art rule, is there since 1970 years. Everything okay?
Maybe just you were in the middle of some.
Okay.
Talk about it later.
Okay.
Saved by the bell. Saved by the bell.
I still say the one thing. So artworks are never adapted. Huh? The artworks are never adapted, and so that's one of the ideas I always try. But in this context, people can only laugh about it. But I would really like the idea that artworks could be adapted like architecture. Would be really nice to do and to try and to think about. Yeah.
Thank you.
Then I would say, Okay, sorry.
Thank you. Gijs, Martin.